It's now my privilege to welcome John Tamihere this morning. I know a lot of you have been very attracted by the name and have come along. John is Tamihere of this area for us. John has, I think, an eye for large, silent minorities. He's done tremendous work in West Auckland. He took the Waipireta Trust from being a small trust through to a multi-million-dollar organisation, and he put Māori social services on the map. And he has been a strong voice for urban Māori, which I think is another large minority that didn't have a voice before John came along. Of course, the other large minority that I'm speaking of, I believe is men, you men. And I think he has had an eye for us. And I give credit to John's courage to stand up and speak on behalf of men. There have only been two politicians in the House who've spoken on behalf of men, John and Muriel Newman, who I also acknowledge, who've spoken, who created a voice for men. John has been with the Waipireta Trust. He's a former chairman of the New Zealand Māori Rugby League Board, and he's also served as the solicitor of the Department of Māori Affairs. He's a former cabinet minister, and I hope not too soon that he is once again a cabinet minister. Welcome, John.
Listen, I sort of prefaced a few of the comments that I was going to make, but actually written a speech. Colleagues more senior to me and further up the food chain say that I should do this more regularly. And, try and keep to it if possible. But unlike Bob, to get some attention, I won't drop my trousers today. Look, which is a very manly thing to do, they tell me. Only in West Auckland. Anyway, look, I just want to acknowledge Warwick and the rest of the team for having the courage and the vision and the energy to organise today. And it's a great day as a consequence, just to actually get together and have some fraternity to talk about issues which are significant. And last year in July, I delivered a speech and to capture attention. It was entitled Tamihere Comes Out of the Closet. Now that was, that actually caused some great consternation amongst all my rugby league mates, but it was actually to come out just to declare that, I'm a heterosexual, blah, 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 and the rest is history, you know that. Why did I do that? As Minister of Youth Affairs, I was hugely concerned at the significant data that was starting to come through on the malperformance of young men, particularly. And there wasn't a spike. This is a growing trend. And if you're in leadership and you start to see trend analysis going up, and that's in regard to self-harm, suicide, retention on education campuses, progressing in professions and or trades, we have some major issues. You shouldn't just bury your head in the sand and just think that, oh, we're big boys, we're still in positions of authority and power, and as a consequence, all's hunky-dory. That's far from the truth. The next problem that we had was, well, let's do a research review, and let's have a look at what work is going on in identifying and informing and advising the way in which the major organs that shift societal mores and views are reflecting on this. Well, it should be no surprise to you that there's none of any consequence in terms of resourcing, longevity, quality and quantity. And so issues relevant to men's related matters with a focus on predominantly, and I say heterosexual men, I have nothing against what is occurring in the rainbow sector. They're very well viewed in the rainbow sector. The Christian sector is very well viewed. I'm a fellow Catholic, and us fellow Catholics keep the heat down perhaps too much. But the reality is the slice that I was looking at advocating issues for were this large group who, for some unknown reason, just keep their heads down. Now, anyway, sticking to the script. Firstly, in advocating issues for men, we're always open to the lazy and unfair criticism that we must, therefore, by definition or ipso facto, be anti-others. Be anti-others. So you cannot be browbeaten by that criticism and therefore have our issues caveated and stopped. Okay? Because in this country, if you have some very strong views and you put your head above the parapet, legions of people line up to knock it off. But that's just the nature of it, and you've just got to get over it and get on with it. So the first point is we must be quite fearless in the way in which we conduct our conversation, our discussion, and our debate in light of some horrendous trends that are occurring, particularly with our young men. And secondly, any conversation or debate on men's issues cannot be assimilated into any other gender's communication process. Now, men folk must fashion and define and defend their own communication standard. Now, why is that? Because communication defines our values, our nuances, and our standards and our ways. Now, just because we communicate differently, it doesn't mean that we're wrong. And once again, no research based, but only by intuition and observation and anecdotal evidence. A big range of men that I mix and mingle with, if they've created harm or hurt or difficulty, they don't want to continue to revisit the scene of the crime, so to speak. They want to try and head towards a solution-based approach to how we can effect moving on. Now, just because they don't want to continue to communicate about that doesn't mean to say that they're macho, that they're staunch, or that they're non-communicative. Let's have a think about the different ways, the way in which we might communicate, and let's get some acknowledgement and acceptance that we can't all communicate in a standard that some people might like us to, just because it's great in the way in which they relate. And the third thing is, given that we're locked into some long-term significant trends in male social malperformance, we just have to have this conversation. It is healthy. Now, and the fourth thing that I'd say is that let's be solution focused. What I mean by that is that we've got some urgent work to do, but it ill behoves us not to accept and acknowledge that the mothers of our sons and the grandmothers of their grandsons are huge stakeholders in this, and we have huge support out there. They're just wondering where they can get entry to support us in acknowledging, as they do, the significant difficulties that their sons and their grandsons have. And they're as powerless as anyone else in this room until we actually start to fashion points of entry for them that they can engage with. And so there's a huge stakeholder group out there that need to be invited in and need to be supported. And I look forward to conference in that. So I've got a number of challenges for this conference, really, because given the dearth and the paucity of relevant and valid research on men's-related issues in this country, I've got to say it's international, so let's not sort of beat ourselves up over that too much. So the challenge to the conference from me to you is let's start to define in the widest possible context what might be the values, what might be the attributes and characteristics that profile the average Kiwi bloke or average Kiwi male. Now, it must be a profile that resonates, and deeply so that men folk up and down the country can say, yeah, hey, that's me, and I'm proud to be. I'm proud to be that, and I can be proud of that. I'll give you one little story which touched me a month ago. This boy, a man my age, had been unemployed for 14 years, but in the last 18 months had become IT knowledgeable. And for the first time in his life, when his children come home from school, he was able to not only outperform them, but to be supportive of them in their homework. And the shift and the change in his own self-belief in himself as a male that could contribute something meaningfully to his kids for the first time meant that he's a new man, got a job now, and he's moved on. So, you know, there's all sorts of ways in which just little triggers can help. The fact that 1/3 of our families don't have a male role model is problematic, because we know on every research base that young men, and males particularly, look forward to a father figure. The fact that they don't have them it might be a problem, but we can get over that by other men standing up, putting their hands up. Now, I intend to make a number of observations on a number of key policy areas that I'd like to get a steer from conference, because I don't have all the answers. But we've got to raise the debate, raise the conversation, raise the issue. Otherwise, we don't get shifts in the major organs that can achieve them. Now, in education, with respect, we're going to have to excite and support male scribes in writing literature in all its forms. Literature about male lifestyles that will grieve, that are sad, but just as importantly, that rejoice and that celebrate and that succeed. And we need our own novels and our own poetry and our own short stories and our own songs. Seems to be a dearth of that. It seems to be a fact that just happens, or if we write about it, we're quite embarrassed about, unless it's about telling people, as Bob says, telling them, rather than inviting them in and asking the right questions about how they might participate. So we've got to excite males back on the education campuses. And rather than all men being possible pedophiles, we must ensure that education campuses become safer places for them to participate in. See, our young boys and our young men not just require this, society must have it in terms of a balanced society, a balanced community. 9 out of 10 primary school teachers are women. It's not a woman's problem that that is the case. A number of those babies are looking for a range of other ways in which to communicate and to obtain solace. So we've got scholarships to fill a number of gaps, be it in ethnic areas, or be it in terms of certain skill mismatches. No doubt we're going to have to look at some incentivisation programs to get men back onto campuses, but more particularly we have to make sure that those campuses are safe places for men to participate in. And I have 3 colleagues that are no longer primary school teachers solely on the basis of their inability to express support and affection, or because they need a mentor beside them in the event of any allegation. Are there mongrels and are there pedophiles? Of course there are. In this country we always overcompensate for 5% of the bad buggers and 95% of the rest have to wear it. Now, so I don't have all the answers as to how we're going to do that, but we must try and do that to get it just more as a socialisation process going. So the requirement for young men and men folk generally to lift their game over child rearing and child caring activities is significant. You know, I was a bit late today, but anyway, this place kicked off late, so it's good. Why I was late was because Hobart reckons he's only staying at school 2 minutes today, when I was dropping him off. The other little one fell down the stairs, didn't get hurt, but you know, there's major grief. So the reality is, you know, you've got all these things on, they don't get to work, got to do this, so do our women folk. But nowhere in the education curricula, or nowhere in anywhere, has the shift in society and the rapidity of it, where caregiving duties are thrust upon men, has there ever been discussion and conversation about, do we have the belts and braces, do we have the skill sets there? And is it a parental thing that just happens by osmosis? Is it biologically inclined that you are great because you're a male as a caregiver and as a consequence can pick up it just like that? Or do we need some support and assistance to acknowledge that there might well be a vacuum in our skill sets and that we might need some support to actually achieve what's just been thrust on us? And so these are the sorts of questions that need to be answered. There's no doubt that they're there. So I just want to move on now to get off education and go into health. Now, in terms of men's health-related matters, now it's clear that men folk do not talk about their health-related problems, particularly in regard to the private parts. My mate Dover is a key example of that. Now, it is clear that they only attend. Oh, look, I tell you, the joke's sake, so I said to Dover, mate, you're going to have to handle this in the most humorous way possible. So I sat down for 30 minutes and I was cracking all the funnies and he got very, very angry. But anyway, moving on. It's clear that they only attend for medical support when they present pain and difficulty. Now, Americans, because of the way in which their insurance systems work, and I suspect, I don't know, I suspect, have a health prevention style program amongst men folk. Men folk there go to doctors regularly because their insurers require it. Furthermore, doctors there are obliged to carry out a range of tests on males, lest they be sued for negligence. Now, in New Zealand, we do not have this culture. We do not have this insurance-driven protection provision, and we must have a deep and meaningful conversation about men getting more regular health checks. You know, just because the quack reaches for a rubber glove, men head for the door. Anyway, a woman had this discussion under the Cartwright inquiry 25 years ago. They're over it. Okay. So our men folk are just going to have to get over it and change your culture in regard to the way in which they present and disclose to the doctor. You know, are there enough male doctors? I don't know, but that's another story. We're looking at a number of all the professions in all the major professional schools and every university right now. Is that a good thing? I don't know. Think about it. So men must become more health conscious, and let's have a go at looking at doing that. Men's suicide rates and health difficulties will require far better research. And the male plea for help often exhibits itself in a range of behaviours which are then managed by our criminal justice system. It's a default position, actually. And so men's problems are always managed by a default position. And that's another marvellous reason why we should have this discussion today. Is that a good enough tool for us to continue with? Now, in the justice area, and I'm grateful that Kim Workman's here today. Kim used to be my boss at Māori Affairs and talking to say all the naughty things that have been picked up on lately. Not. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. But in terms of justice-related matters, men obviously don't unacceptably overrepresent road carnage and crimes of violence against the person. So unless we men take control of that problem, we will continue to be managed by the default position of New Zealand Police Force, New Zealand Courts, New Zealand Corrections and Prison Service. All right? And we will be treated as the perpetrators of the problem unless we forcefully take up an acknowledgement that in a social mores sense, it's uncool to get pissed at dope like that. It's uncool to treat your children like that. It's uncool to treat your woman like that. So unless we start to demand those standards and the like, and I'm talking about at the very grassroots levels, where we can have some, we're not going to effect change to the extent that we want it, but we must start to talk about that before we can actually start to get the shifts going. So in other words, we've got to own the problem and find some of the solutions. But let's not get into the debate in terms of victimhood. Okay? If you want to be a victim in this country, go and join the bloody Maori Party. So the other point I want to say about that is we're out of victimhood, we're into solutionhood. Okay? I'm not interested in victims here because we've all been through there. You know, I was on first name basis with the process server from the family court in Henderson. First marriage down anyway. So you know, been there, done that. Not interested anymore in the brutality of the family court. The fact that the law's not wrong, but the policy in it might be. See, that's a societal shift, and that's a mores shift required. To acknowledge the right of men in that particular place, as opposed to the laws, not the ass, I might say. So you know, just moving on, you know, it seems that we continue to place in this country far too much resource therefore into managing our problem, rather than looking at the causation and addressing causation, and turning off the tap in terms of the crime involved in other two prisons in the Waikato and up north. So I wanted to conclude by just challenging you again. In public relations terms, men folk have never turned up to this debate you have today, and that's great. It's a start. But we're not going to turn up, we're not going to have a conversation. We're going to have some issues. Now, we're going to have to talk to the press, and we're going to have to get some sympathy out of them for what we're about. Because we're not about being anti-others. We're actually desperately looking for solutions to a growing and significant problem. We're going to have to sort out the academics, okay? Unless we can sort out some of the academics. Now, in the Māori world, don't send your children to Māori Studies Department of Auckland University or others. The reason why is because if you go against the mantra there that they put out, and if they don't give balanced information, you are therefore a racist if you argue against them. That's wrong. So in our places of learning, now really have to start to look at themselves and reflect upon themselves in regard to these issues. So our academics have to start to lift their ball game as much as you. Our media has to start to lift its ball game and commentary on these issues as much as you. And dare I say it, those political activists across the board, this isn't a Labour Party issue. This isn't a National Party issue. It's not a United Future issue, actually. This is about nationhood and the type of nationhood we bequeath to those that will succeed to it. So as a consequence, it runs across political colours, it runs across creeds, and it behoves us to have this conversation in a most positive way. Finally, we all know that it's Friday. On Sunday, it's Mother's Day. For Christ's sake, don't forget that. And so, because I've forgotten the bloody marriage anniversary, that's bloody fake. Valentine's Day, and anyway, you all know the story. So, I'm absolutely sure that our continued acknowledgement, respect, and honouring of our women folk will occur not just on Sunday, but every day. And it's not about that. It's about us lifting up our bootstraps, really taking responsibility, bringing back duty and obligation and responsibility into our hands as the people, and not externalising it to agencies of the state called the New Zealand Police Force. They've got enough hard work to do as it is. Okay, thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for the opportunity to come along and have a chat. Thanks, Laura, for coming along. Kia ora.
This is a blokes conference, right? And we think you deserve a DB.